So one of the big issues that a lot of people have is digestive issues, and there's a common theme that I oftentimes find that's a little bit counterintuitive and against the common narrative. And digestive issues is a fairly broad topic, so to clarify what I'm talking about excessive gas and bloating. And there's really two places that this gas can come from, either what we produce or what we ingest. In terms of ingesting gas, some of this could come from a lot of carbonated beverages, and the other way that we really ingest gas is either by over-breathing or if we're using a straw and we suck in a bunch of air. However, the majority of gas inside of our stomach is actually going to be produced internally. You see, the normal physiology is to have bacteria inside of our large intestine, and these bacteria are going to ferment any food that make it to our large intestine. And these foods are going to be things like fiber and really just undigestible products. But most of the time, all the foods that are digestible will digest in the small intestine and they won't make it to the large intestine. And one of the touted benefits of fiber is that it will make it all the way to the large intestine because it passes through us undigested. And now there's two different types of fiber, soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber can be fermented by these bacteria inside of our large intestine. And insoluble fiber actually can't, and it will even pass through our large intestine undigested. So the function of soluble fiber is usually to actually feed these gut bacteria, and the function of insoluble fiber is to add bulk to your stool. And now a healthy digestive system is able to actually break down carbohydrates, protein, and fat through digestive enzymes and stomach acid before it can reach the large intestine. Therefore, fiber should be the only thing that reaches the large intestine. However, a lot of people are actually deficient in either digestive enzymes or stomach acid, meaning that these molecules go undigested, make it to the large intestine, and these bacteria are able to ferment them. And when they ferment these products, they produce gas. So a very simple fix would be something like a digestive enzyme, ox bile, or some sort of betaine hydrochloride, which is a precursor for stomach acid. However, a lot of people are actually prescribed pre- and probiotics, and this can actually cause a lot of harm. You see, when we take pre- and probiotics, we're exposing bacteria to our small intestine. And if there's undigested food here, the bacteria can actually begin to colonize inside of our small intestine. And the small intestine is the site of absorption for us, not the bacteria. But when we have an abundance of bacteria inside of our small intestine, they may begin to absorb the food before we have a chance to. And bacteria inside of our small intestine will still produce gas, so this could cause even excessive bloating, because even more of our food is actually being fed to these gut bacteria instead of to us. And I'm actually not saying this without experience. When I first heard about pre- and probiotics, I decided to take some. And at the time, I had an extremely high fiber and vegetable diet. So I caused this bacterial buildup inside of my small intestine, and this is referred to as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And at the time, I certainly had a lot of digestive issues. And what made it even worse is I took the common suggestion to increase my fiber intake. And as I mentioned, fiber is undigestible, and its sole purpose is to actually feed these gut bacteria and to pass through our system undigested. And this simply adds more undigestible material inside of your intestinal tract for these bacteria to ferment and produce more gas. And unfortunately, when you have this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, one of the things you may have to do is actually restrict fiber intake for a period of time. And now obviously you should actually get this done through a gut health practitioner or someone who's able to measure the amount of bacteria and the location of these bacteria. And don't buy random supplements from people who claim that they're gut health practitioners and are trying to sell you pre- and probiotics. Not that there's anything wrong with these supplements, but for some people it's actually going to make their issues worse. Another thing is the fact that fiber will add bulk to your stool, and if you struggle with constipation, this could either be good or bad. Some people struggle with constipation because there's not enough water inside their intestine to form a healthy stool, and fiber can actually draw this water in. But other people struggle with constipation because there's a lot of undigested matter inside of their intestines, and it's kind of getting stuck inside of their small and large intestine. And adding additional fiber could actually make this worse. Unfortunately, in patients who already struggle with abdominal pain, adding in additional fiber makes their symptoms worse, and removing fiber seems to make their symptoms better. It sounds a little bit crazy, but I think the healthier you are, the more fiber you can handle. And if you struggle with any sort of gas or bloating issues, you may want to restrict yourself to insoluble fiber. And if you struggle with extreme constipation and abdominal pain, you may want to try reducing your fiber for a period of time and seeing what happens. But obviously during this period of time, you're going to want to make sure you're staying hydrated as best as possible. And this doesn't mean to go on a zero fiber diet. I think the only reason the carnivore diet can survive on zero fiber is if you have a strong digestive system, because a strong digestive system will absorb almost all of the nutrients found inside of animal products, meaning that there's not much undigested residual matter that will make it to the intestine anyway. However, it doesn't really seem that the carnivore diet impairs the abundance of gut bacteria. So I really am not yet to make a conclusive statement on whether or not these people do or do not need fiber. And I hope you don't think this video is bashing fiber, because in some people it could be beneficial. Coming back to healthy and unhealthy gut bacteria, it appears that healthy body composition actually aids and supports the growth of healthy gut bacteria. And an unhealthy body composition or unhealthy lifestyle habits seems to actually promote unhealthy gut bacteria. But when we have these healthy gut bacteria, some of the metabolites or breakdown products that can be produced from fiber can actually be extremely beneficial. So as crazy as it sounds, I think the healthier you are and the healthier your digestive system, the more fiber you can intake. And maybe if you're struggling with digestive issues, adding in both prebiotics and probiotics, but also adding in more fiber could actually be a little bit harmful. My best recommendation is to get something called a SIBO breath test. And this can give you a subtle indication of whether or not you've developed a little bit of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. The at-home way, which is a little bit cheaper, is to see if you get bloated in very close proximity to a meal. Typically, it takes a few hours for all this food to get to the large intestine. But to get to the small intestine, it takes a lot less time. So if bloating and gas come in close proximity to a meal, it could be because there's bacteria inside of the small intestine that's actually kind of attacking this food a little bit early. And the last thing that I'll mention is if you go and get blood work and see that you have a lot of nutrient deficiencies. This could be an indication that these bacteria are absorbing your nutrients for you, and they're not giving you your fair share. So I think to wrap this all up, I just want to say that trying to add in a lot of things for digestive health may not always be the best option. Instead, actually trying to remove things could be a little bit more beneficial. And I don't have a product because I don't have anything to sell, but one thing that has the possibility to be beneficial is betaine hydrochloride or some sort of high-quality digestive enzyme. Interestingly, you can actually hypothesize which digestive enzyme you need, because if you get bloated in response to a carbohydrate meal but not a protein meal, you may be deficient in the carbohydrate digesting enzyme amylase, but be sufficient in the protein digesting enzyme protease. And if you get bloated in response to a fat meal, this could be an issue with your production of bile acids. But once again, none of these are recommendations, and I really think that you should get tested first and maybe try eliminating things before you add things. I would love to hear all of your comments and questions in the comment section below, and I want to say thank you for listening, and I hope I have the pleasure of speaking to you next video.